Hello and welcome to the Interpreting Wine, Drinks and Hospitality podcast. I'm of course your host and podcast founder, Lawrence Francis. Across 8 episodes welcoming you to the Austrian wine producing region of Wagram. While I've covered several Austrian producers on the podcast, this is the first series featuring a deep dive of a single region, with all the episodes recorded with producers in Wagram in September 2019. In their own words, they'll introduce you to the geology, the history, the local grape varieties, winemaking styles, and of course, wines of the region. All of the producers are at least organic and some are biodynamic. And interestingly, many of these wines are not yet available in major overseas markets. And where producers are seeking representation, I've included details in each episode. So without further ado, here's today's episode of this Wagram special. Today's episode of the Wagram special features Thomas Schuster of Weingut Schuster. The latest generation of a winemaking family, Thomas tells us the origin of Weingut Schuster and gives us a virtual estate tour. He talks winemaking decisions in their production. Before we taste 3 Gruner Veltliners and 2 Rote Veltliners, and he finishes by looking outside of the winery. Enjoy.
Our winery was founded in 1772. So a long history for producing wines. Came from the agricultural sector, so we were farmers some ages ago, and moved to the wine production. And for me, I did my internship in New Zealand, for example, at Saracen Estate, also an organic winery, a biodynamic winery, which was really interesting for me, and many things to learn. And was influenced also by biodynamic, as I did an internship at Weingut Fridge in the same region where my region is, in Wagram. Also really important. I was 16 when I did this internship there. So, then I decided to go back to university for 5 years beside my job. So that meant working from Monday to Friday and Saturday and Sunday attending the university. It was quite busy, but I had fun and had really good colleagues, and was a good time for me and many things to learn I can rely on today. So a good time, and that was also a time when I became really sure that I want to move to organic production. So we changed our way of producing wines back 2013. Then we became certified with the vintage. 2016 was the first vintage for organic production. And it was not a big step for us to change because it was just outside concerning the spraying. That was the only thing which was difference for us. But I really like it. It makes fun, and it was a more holistic part for us, a personal aspect, how we want to do our work outside in the vineyard and how we want to deal with the wines itself, instead of just focusing what is the demand for the market. It was more a personal thing, something that we want to figure out for our quality. If we can increase the quality and focus more on the single vineyards. That was the point for us.
We're here, in the Wagram region, September 2019, and I'm visiting many winemakers around here. And what I'm really asking each of you to do really is kind of give the listener a bit of a virtual tour of your vineyards, where we've kind of just come back from, just to give them a sense of what your vines kind of look like, and a little bit of the aspect, and maybe even just capturing a bit of kind of what's actually happening right at this moment up in the vines that we've just seen.
Okay, so really easy, because outside in the vineyard we started with the harvest today, so it's a busy day for us, as we saw some minutes ago. Just one information about our region. We are focused on loess soil, so we have many loess soils, mighty loess soils, 20 to 30 meters deep. But we also have some spots of gravel as we are influenced by the Danube region itself. And also, there are many fossils which were brought to us from the Danube area. And the loessy soil is a relict form from the last ice age. So really important for us because of the high water storage capacity. For loess it's possible to store 1/3 of its capacity with water, so no problem for us in hot years, which, for example, 18 or also 19 this year. It was quite uncomplicated for us, and we do not have irrigation outside, so deep growing roots, and that's important for us. And the main varieties in our region is Gruner Veltliner, for example. Everyone know in Austria quite well, but also the Rote Veltliner, which is one of our main varieties besides Gruner Veltliner. It's a niche market and niche variety, of course, but really important for us as we have 30.5% of our production, which comes from Rote Veltliner grapes. Also common is Blauer Zweigelt, Frührote Veltliner, the Malvasier, for example, or Müller-Thurgau, the Rivaner. Beside Riesling, as we are in the Danube area and also have many vineyards with Riesling, but they are completely different to Rieslings from Urgestein, let's say from the Kamptal or Wachau, as we have the deep loess soils. So they are more mouthful and more powerful compared to the Wachau, for example. But also really interesting. I really like those style of wine. And other varieties, also some spots of Merlot and Cabernet, but not that much. So main focus is on Gruner and Rote Veltliner, Riesling, Blauer Zweigelt. And for my winery itself, it's Pinot Noir. This variety we really like, and we have a long tradition growing Pinot Noir. It's not that easy. It's the same diva like Rote Veltliner and white wine, but really like it.
It's really interesting for me as well that the wineries that I've seen so far, they've all had quite a different feel to them. And it would just be, I think, great for the listener just to, for you to give them a bit of a virtual tour, I guess, just to give it, a sense of the scale and, what's happening here in terms of, what are kind of some of the decisions that you're making and you've made about how you process the grapes.
Yes, we are sitting here in our winery under the tree. We have a big tree in the middle of our winery. It's an important place for us for tastings because it's a relaxed zone where you can think about the wine and have the impression from outside, from the vineyard, from the single vineyard. In general, for processing our wines, I've been asked, we're just crushing our berries instead of destemming it, as we think the stems itself contribute to the complexity and to the structure. So just focus on it, and we do not want them to have them too green, so the tannins are not too intensive. But in general, it's no problem for us. And we do long mash maceration of up to 20 hours. Depends on the variety. And for the settlement, we just settle it overnight after the pressing to get rid of the lees. That's all we do. So no pumping and no pressure. It's just relaxed producing wines. And that's something that I think is necessary for producing wines focused on the single vineyard, the soils, and the whole topic, and not just producing same variety, same stuff. So really, high input of ideas from our side, and we think a lot of what we are doing and how we do it. Concerning the fermentation, we use mainly stainless steel tanks, but also some acacia barrels and oak barrels. That depends on the variety and the single vineyard. So we have to experience which one fits for which wine best. And we major the wines on the full lees, so we do not rack them after the fermentation, as we think it contributes to the complexity as well. So, not that much influence from the vintner side. Just just an overview, but not that intensive influence from our side. So there are many philosophies in Austria. I think that's an advantage for the vintnership, the vintners itself, and the wine producing country Austria. Yeah, it's an advantage.
It depends.
Depends always on what you're looking for, but true. I think it should be doable for the market, that there are many philosophies, and everyone can do what you want, and is not asked to just follow one philosophy. Yeah, so really open-minded in Austria.
I think that's also really interesting kind of insight into the psyche as well, because I mean, anyone who regularly listens to this will know that I'm a big fan of Austrian wines, and I think each time I come I learn a little bit more about the way that people make wines and kind of the philosophy. So it's really super interesting. That being said, we're here at a winery, so we've now got 3 Gruner Veltliners in front of us. So I wonder if you would just take us through each of these, and I guess kind of elaborate on what it was that you were trying to express, and maybe also something around the site and the different vintages that we're going to taste.
Yes, the first one is Gruner Veltliner Wagram vintage 2018. It's the classic Gruner Veltliner, which stands for our region. So that means influenced by mainly loess soil, focused on the fruitiness and the complexity of Gruner Veltliner. Also the pepper inside and the structure from the lees contact. That's perfectly suited for example, Wiener Schnitzel. It's typical Austrian cuisine, really good suited for that. The time of harvest in 18 was the earliest harvest we had ever to face. It was the beginning of the last days of August. We started with the harvest, which means 3 or 4 weeks earlier than the average. So that's the influence, and we have to face for the future, as the climate change now is really here, and nothing that is just an title in a newspaper. It's really here, and we tried to harvest just beginning in the early morning, 6 o'clock until 12 o'clock, and then we finished the harvest, as we thought that it's too hot outside. So I do not want to receive the grapes with 30 degrees inside, so that's obviously too much. Also for mash maceration, that's too much for it. So we stopped harvest, and the reason for just doing it in 4 weeks, the whole harvest, was we had more people than we had in an average year. So more manpower outside, and then we stopped at 12 o'clock. It's the difference. So the next one is Gruner Veltliner Alte Reben. This a Gruner Veltliner which comes from really old vines. They are 65 to 67 years old, planted by my grandfather. Planted on mainly loess soil, but there are some spots of gravel, so a different structure compared to the Wagram Veltliner before, as we have the saltiness and the minerality inside, beside the powerful loess soil. It is 13.5 alcohol. It's a little bit more than the year before, but it's because of the hot weather outside. Now we have single vineyard Eisenhut Gruner Veltliner in the glass. It's our most important single vineyard from a south-facing slope. We visited this single vineyard before. It's mainly loess soil, but we have a chalk layer underneath, so really important for the minerality of the wine. We did some mash maceration with this wine and kept it on the lees for a long time. Majored in mainly oak and acacia barrels, so completely different structure to the Alte Reben before. And that's for me the typical Wagram Gruner Veltliner. That's loess, pure loess. That's something which you want to bite in. Yeah, so really complex.
You put forward Gruner Veltliner and Rote Veltliner as being the most important grapes, and you have to communicate about what you have here, in terms of the loss and the style. But I think as well, it's just interesting to me to be able to share as well that those three, they are completely different as well. I think they bring out very different characteristics. I mean, I think especially for me, when you then step up into the Alte Reben, where you've got those kind of older vines coming through, and then the Ried Eisenhut, you've then got a totally different level of complexity. I think it's very interesting to know the Alte Reben winning awards for 17, and hearing about the differences of the vintages. 18, super hot year, earliest harvest ever, but you've still managed to maintain that level of finesse, I would say. It's not, doesn't feel like a hot year. There's very much that freshness that's retained there, and it just seems to, as I say, really speak of the place that it's grown. As getting some of those herbal notes coming out, and that again, that the Danube that you can see from standing up there on the vineyard, it's kind of all there in the glass. So I just think it's just another example that within the Wagram, putting itself forward in the way that it is, and talking to the loss and talking to the grape variety, there's still, even within each producer, there's still quite a lot of variation and differentiation between the Gruner Veltliners. So having looked at those three Gruner Veltliners, the other, super important grape of the area, the Rote Veltliner. So, take us, again into the glass, this time with the Rote Veltliner.
So now we move on to Rote Veltliner. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but Rote Veltliner is quite complicated outside in the vineyard for a vintner. So nothing that the vintners like in general. It's a lot of work to do, as they are growing more in horizontal than in vertical. The shoots itself and the bunches are really dense, so easily affected by botrytis and diseases. So a lot of work for the vintner. And we do a green harvest, an early harvest, and take out more than 50% of the grapes. So just to have more complexity and have them on the mesh also for a longer time. And Altweingarten is one of the most important single vineyards for us. Altweingarten, the name comes from old vineyard, the direct translation, and means, as it is situated behind the Kellergasse, the old cellars. They have been the traditional way of producing, so the vineyard was behind the cellar itself, and that's the reason why there have been old vineyards, and the old Altweingarten, the name comes from. It's mainly loess soil and influenced by the wind from the northern part of Austria, from Lower Austria. We try to have them outside as long as possible. And Altweingarten is not too high in alcohol. It's about 12.5 to 13, as it should be a good relation between complexity and also drinking experience. A typical pairing depends on how intensive the aromatic of the dishes. We always say that the Asian cuisine is really good, is really well suited for Rote Veltliner, goes very well, but also the Austrian cuisine, some sauces. So, it's to explain it, it's sometimes more easier to pair a Rote Veltliner to dish than Riesling or Gruner Veltliner, because Gruner Veltliner, most of the people link Austrian wine with Gruner Veltliner and know them very well, and Riesling sometimes have too much acidity, so the Rote Veltliner is your choice then. Really good for the sommeliers, and also for your choice. The final Rote Veltliner we have now in the glass is from single vineyard Berg Eisenhut. It's in the next village. It's Gösinger Wagram. It's 4 kilometers away from Großriedenthal. There we have big advantage, and it's planted in terraces, so 4 different terraces, and mainly on gravel. So we have a loess layer on top, but gravel on the ground, and that's really important for not that intensive growing wines, and so they are not that easily affected by botrytis and diseases. We store this wine for a long mash maceration and long on the lees, and matured in acacia barrel in 500 liters. So the influence of the oak is not that much, but I really like the characteristic of acacia. It fits really good and goes very well with Veltliner, better than oak in my experience. So really important single vineyard and one of the highest rated in Wagram region in Austria.
Yeah, that's really lovely. I think it's it's just interesting to have a wine that's got more of that kind of gravelly soil that it's grown on. So maybe just turning down a little bit the richness. Obviously still got the lees and then the influence from the wood coming through. So just such a an interesting and I would say versatile wine as well. I think that was something I think we spoke about off mic. Basically, is I think that there's it's great to do pairings but sometimes you see the descriptions that are put on wines and they're so precise. It's like at the end of the day, wine is meant to be drunk and meant to be savoured. Preferably with your friends, and if you're out at a restaurant, not necessarily worrying about changing each wine to suit each and every course, So I think this is, one of those things that people tell me is, they want wines that can potentially carry them across, from a starter into a main, or across different starters. And in the scheme of things here, this is kind of super versatile. I guess kind of ask you to, be a little bit expansive. I guess, potentially look outside of Austria and, talk to I guess, kind of where these wines are being bought and where they're being enjoyed. Potentially other markets that you're looking to develop, and then, also kind of anything else that you think is, you'd like to share with the listener.
Yes, I'm a young vintner and quite powerful and open-minded. I want to find access to the UK market and US market. That would be great for us. And something I want to mention about the Austrian wine market itself and the vintners. We are a group, a community of many young vintners, and it doesn't matter where you are and which country you're doing a tasting together. Those are all colleagues and friends, and everyone is sharing information, and there are no locked doors anymore. So it's a good mood and a good vibe for the Austrian vintners, and they're all good friends. So it makes fun in Austria to produce wine because you have a good crew behind you, and that's a big advantage of the Austrian vintners. Yeah. This year we're nearly finished, and the next year is there are two big festivals. It's the Pro Wine in Düsseldorf, of course, well found us, and the Wir Vinum Wine Festival in Vienna, the most famous wine tasting area and 3-day lasting festival in Austria.
Thank you so much, Thomas. An absolute pleasure to taste with you, and I'm honoured you found time to do so on the very first day of the harvest. As Thomas mentioned, their wines are not currently exported to the UK or US. And if you'd like to make contact, you can find their website, email, and social media handle below. And while you're at it, why not let me know what you think of the Wagram series so far? You can reach me on Instagram and Facebook, where I'm at Interpreting Wine. On Twitter, where I'm at Wine Podcast. Or email hello@interpretingwine.com. Next time on the Wagram special in episode 337, we head over to Weingut Meerhofer Neudeggedorf. See you then.